Hey, don't forget to join the Leveraged Unleashed Facebook group. Jump into a community of like minded entrepreneurs and get access to business resources, e guides, and tips. Join the exclusive group today, Leveraged Unleashed, on Facebook. All right, so today we're talking about minority, woman owned, disadvantaged business enterprise certifications. What are they? How do you get them? And then once you get them, how do you leverage them within your current business model to help grow your business? Well, we're going to talk about that and so much more. Let's get it. So, what is certification? If you ask anyone what certification is, they're going to give you a different answer because the certifications are really based on what that company needed at the time. Some people get certification because it's just something that makes sense for their business overall. They are a minority owned business and they want to have that certification in place. They may not be seeking any type of large contracts with corporations or municipalities, but they just want that designation. Others get certification because they do have an opportunity to do business with a city of Dallas, for example, or the, Coca-Colas or American Airlines of the world. But certification truly is three things. It's a leveraging tool, number one. It's also an investment. And then it's a designation that's really based on the minority ownership of that company. So you have to begin to ask yourself when you look at certification, how are you going to take this tool and leverage it in order to build your business and make sure that your investment in this certification is something that you can receive a return on? And we're going to talk about each of these three areas. So with certification, you have so many designations, so many different types of certifications that touch different customers, that touch different types of contracts. And as you can see here, depending on the funding source, depending on the agency, that is going to make a difference in the certification that you seek. So for a local certification, you're looking at most of your cities and your counties. They have local certification programs. Most of them are going to be minority-owned, women-owned small business programs. But if you head on down the road to San Antonio, I used to run the agency there. We had about 11 different designations. So in addition to your basic minority, woman-owned, small, you had an African American business, you had a Hispanic American business, you had a veteran business, you had a disabled veteran business. I mean, there was just a myriad of certification designations that you could obtain based on the majority ownership of the company. And the reason for this is because in San Antonio, for example, they realized that the African American businesses there didn't have the same advantage as the minority businesses. So within their annual spend goal, and we'll say that they had a 10% minority business spend goal, they decided to carve out of that, we'll say 3% for African American businesses only. So they wanted to be very intentional about targeting African American businesses within their annual spend and procurements. And that is essentially how most of your local programs come into fruition. They identify that there is this huge gap. They need to be able to allocate some spend towards specific designated groups. And so they do that within their small business, their minority business, or supplier diversity programs. Each program for the city or county is going to be written by that city or county, and it's going to be incorporated into their ordinance. So anytime you're looking to do business with, a city of Dallas, city of Fort Worth, you always want to go to their local ordinance to identify whether or not they have additional qualifications on top of what the certification agency of their choice may be requiring. And we'll get into the various agencies in a moment. So from the local certification, you then go up to your state certifications. So this is going to be any state funded agency. And the state has one designation, and that's your historically underutilized business. The state hub certification gets commonly confused with the SBA's hub zone, and there are two different programs. And your state hub certification, while it is a desk audited certification, there's not a whole lot of teeth when you compare it to local certification programs as well as federal programs. So we'll talk about an agreement that the state has put into effect with several of the regional agencies here. And then you have your federal designations. Now, the federal designations are separated into two groups. You have your federal transportation authorities, or your Department of Transportation, which is going to be federal aviation, so your airports, federal highway, which of course is going to be TxDOT for the state of Texas. And then you also have the Federal Transit Administration. So you're talking about DART, the Federal Transit Administration in Fort Worth, as well as Denton County Transit Agency. So those are just some examples of the local agencies that fall up under the Department of Transportation. Now, for this federal designation, they only accept two certifications: your Disadvantaged Business Enterprise and your Airport Concessionaire Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. Now, for the DBE certification, not only does the company have to be 51% owned and controlled by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, but you also have to meet a personal net worth threshold. So currently, the personal net worth for DBEs is 1.32 million. So as long as you are not worth more than that, you will probably qualify for a DBE certification. For the ACDBE certification, this is specific to your airports. So if you are a concessionaire, meaning you have a physical location inside of the airport, or you are a supplier to that concessionaire. So for example, if you're one of the duty-free shops, and let's say that you have a supplier that supplies you with your earbuds and all of your phone accessories, that supplier could receive an ACDBE certification by proving up that they have a contract with you in the airport. So that's an additional bonus to just having that airport concessionaire designation, because it extends beyond just companies that are located in the airport. And then you have your other federal designations, which is the Small Business Administration. And I'm sure you all have heard quite a bit about the SBA, along with their relief programs that they have been providing, but they have just been everywhere talking about the impact of COVID and a lot of the social unrest just on businesses in general. Your SBA designations, every designation except for the two that are highlighted there are bold, are self-certified. What that means is there's no desk audit. So there's no one checking to make sure that what you put in that system is actually true and correct. You do have to sign an affidavit electronically, but that's it. So what you'll find is a lot of your local agencies, any organization that accepts a DBE certification, and the state are not going to accept the SBA's designated certifications, because there's no additional audit that's done. So there's really no way to prove that those companies are in fact small or woman owned or veteran owned. The only two certifications provided by the SBA that have a desk audit or a formal review is going to be your 8A small business certification and then your hub zone. The hub zone designation, that requires the business to be located in a hub zone, and there are various tracks, and they change periodically, as well as 35% of the employees being located within a hub zone. The trickiness with the hub zone is if the tracks move and your business is no longer located in a hub zone, you lose that designation. And because these contracts are set aside for hub zones, if you start making a lot of money and you're able to pay your employees more, 9 times out of 10, they're going to, do better and move out of the neighborhoods that they're in, which are hub zone neighborhoods. And if they move out of those neighborhoods and you no longer have 35% of those employees located there, then you're in jeopardy of losing your hub zone as well. So it takes a little bit of time to get that designation, but it's also something that you have to watch very closely to make sure that you're keeping those ratios in place. And then the 8A small business certification that's there, that has a time limit. So you're in the 8A small business program for a determined amount of time. When you go through the process of getting that 8A certification, you have to be ready, like your company has to be positioned to maximize the opportunity. Otherwise, when you get to the end of that time period, that's it. So those are two certifications that you really want to do a lot of extra research in before you start going after them to make sure that you're ready to really leverage the opportunities there. And then finally, you have your corporate certifications that are generally done by councils. Here in the DFW area, you have 2 councils, and we'll get into those in just a moment, but they provide minority business, women business enterprise designations, as well as the small business enterprise designation. And specifically for this North Central Texas area, DFW Airport and Dallas County have chosen to have a carve out in their programs specific to just small businesses as well. So talking about selecting the right certification, and it's going to be different depending on where your business is, depending on what you think about certifications, what you know about them, whether or not you know people in the space that have identified opportunities for you. So one way that you can use to select your certification is really looking at your customer. It's very important to know your customer. If your customer is, let's say a corporation, and I'll use Coca-Cola, then they're going to be a member of one of the councils. So you're probably not going to want to use your time in going after a DBE certification because they're not going to accept that certification. So it's very important that you understand who your customer is and what certification they accept, and also what certification agency they prefer. The NCTRCA, the North Central Texas Regional Certification Agency, provides MBE certification just like the DFW Minority Supplier Development Council does. However, you have some customers of the NCTRCA that do not accept the MSDC certification. So it's very important that you understand those little nuances of those programs. And they're readily available on their website, so it's nothing that you have to go digging for, but it's just important that you know that. And that's a really good way to determine which certification you decide to go after. Also, following the money. Now, as I mentioned, there was a difference in local, state, federal certifications. Well, that also has to do with their funding, where they get their money. So if it's a state-funded project, more than likely you're going to have a hub certification in place. If it's a federal DOT project, then you will have to have a DBE certification. So that's also a good way to gauge which certification you want to tackle first. Then you can do a needs assessment. The needs assessment is something that a lot of business owners do when they really don't have a clear idea of how they're going to incorporate municipalities or corporations into their business model as far as their targeted customers are concerned. So you can start looking at the opportunities that might be available with those types of customers, and that can help you determine which certification you need or whether or not it really makes sense for your business right now. It may be that you're doing a lot of retail and your customers are basically individuals that either walk in through your storefront or they find your business online. So you're really not capturing the space of a corporation or municipality. So it might not make sense for you to have an MBE certification or any certification for that fact. And then finally, return on investment. Now, each of these certifications is going to carry an initial application fee as well as an annual update fee. So while they are pretty nominal, depending on how big your company is, you still need to make sure that as you're looking at your business model, as you're looking at your strategies, any type of additional expense that your company is going to incur, that it actually makes sense. And how can you gain a return on that? Now, I can tell you, if you end up getting certified and you win a contract with DART, you're going to make up what you spent in that certification easily because the certifications are not that expensive. But if you are not seeking active contracts, if you're not seeking these types of clients, then it may not make sense for you to go after one of the more expensive certifications versus a cheaper initial application. So let's talk about qualifications a little bit. These are not all of the qualifications. Please don't get that misconstrued. This is not a comprehensive list. This really gives you kind of the 6 top bullet points. And these are things that as a business owner, you need to make sure you have in place before you even think about going after certification. The companies must be owned 51% by a minority, woman, or socially and economically disadvantaged individual. Not 50.1%, but 51%. And this is quite important because that's the majority ownership. If you don't have the majority ownership, then you can't prove that you can actually direct the day-to-day operations of the business, that you can make decisions for the business without needing the approval of your other partners. Now, this ownership ratio comes into more scrutiny when you have a Caucasian male that is a partner in your company. And the reason for that is because these programs have faced a lot of fraud in the past, and they still do today, especially when you're looking at your women-owned business classifications. Because what we see is we have, husband and wife. The husband generally has the majority of the experience. 9 times out of 10, he worked for another company and just started a spinoff of his own, and realize the potential of having a woman-owned designated business because the amount of contracts and level of work that is out there is just unreal. So they start a business and they put their wife at the helm. And that causes all sorts of problems because as you go through this desk audit, you perform a site visit, you begin to see that the wife really does not possess the expertise. She really doesn't make decisions on her own, that her husband is really the one operating the business. So that is why you have to have the majority ownership of the company at all times. Additionally, technical and managerial expertise is another area that a lot of companies struggle with when it comes to certification. And it's not just enough for you to have like a managerial competence around your business, meaning you can't simply do all the back office work. You have to have some technical competence as it relates to your business's services. This comes into play a lot when we look at professional service type firms like your engineers, architects, your construction businesses. So if you as the majority owner don't necessarily possess the licenses, which is not a requirement, but if you don't possess those licenses, then how do you and what type of expertise, technical expertise do you possess? And a lot of that is found through a site visit. When I was a director of the NCTRCA here in Arlington, when I would do site visits and I would go out to businesses and on paper, the majority owner did not seem to possess the level of technical expertise that was necessary in order for them to prove up their ability to operate and manage the company, I would really hammer very hard on the technical questions. We would go out to various sites and I would ask them to tell me about the sites. And it's not that I knew everything about the sites technically, but you can tell after you talk to somebody whether or not they really know what they're talking about. And I was pleasantly surprised in some cases, and in other cases, kind of knew that this individual just didn't possess the technical competence to manage the company without having someone else present, without needing someone else to answer the questions. And so that is an area that as you go through this process of certification, you can be denied on if you don't have that technical competence. Now, you also have to possess the power to direct and control the business. That's key. Aside from, supermajority types of votes, the dissolution of a business, what we're looking for right here is going to be the day-to-day management. So we want to make sure that you're not relying on somebody else in order to make daily decisions about the business if you are truly the majority owner of the company. Proving up capital investment is also critical. So anytime you say, well, I invested, $1,500 in order to start my business, you have to prove that up when you're going through a certification process. And there are certain documents that you can submit in order to do that. But for the most part, we're looking for, your bank statements, wire transfers, your copies of canceled checks. So anything that can prove that financial investment. When you're talking about equipment, if you went out and you had to purchase equipment and you purchased this out of your personal account, then you're going to show proof of that, as well as real estate. If you own the real estate that your business is currently in, and not your house, we're talking about commercial real estate, and you can prove that up, then that can be a part of your capital investment. And what certification agencies are looking for when it comes to capital investment is really whether or not that investment is comparable to your ownership. So let's say that you own 51%, your partner owns 49%, and your partner puts in $500,000 and you put in $2,500. So that's going to cause a red flag when it comes to certification, because they're going to wonder, well, why does your partner only have 49% ownership and they put in $500K and you only put in $2,500 and you own the majority of the company? So those are questions that you're going to have to be able to answer should that be your case for your application. You must be a U.S. citizen or a lawfully permanent resident in order to be certified. And this is going to be across any certification. And this is proven through you submitting a copy of your passport, your birth certificate. If you are a lawfully permanent resident, then your permanent resident card would be proof of that. And then geographical or local presence. And that is based on the local programs, back to those local ordinances. For instance, the city of Fort Worth has a local presence. You have to be located within the city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, or surrounding counties. San Antonio did not have a local presence on their program. The city of Dallas does not have a local presence. So basically, you can have a business in Glen Heights, or you can have a business in Waxahachie and still do business with the city of Dallas. So that's going to be very key in knowing upfront before you start the application process, is whether or not you're going to have to be locally, have a local headquarters.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about why you should get certified and dig a little bit deeper into that return on this investment. Be right back. You know you're not in this alone. We have resources and guides to help you develop business plans and strategies to start and grow your business. Visit lingofocus.com/LSource for more details.
So why get certified? I mean, this is a really great question. And there's a lot of great reasons to get certified. One is just the access to resources. When you go through certifications, especially with the councils, they do a great job of this, providing you with educational resources, networkers. A lot of that today is, on Zoom, but you have access to networkers, you have access to programs that other corporate partners may be providing to the certified members of that particular council. So there's just access that you normally would not have if you're not certified. Also, exposure to buyers. And I'm going to talk about buyers a little bit later, but um, just off the top, your buyers are the ones that make the decisions. It's great to know the CEO. It's great to know the president. It's wonderful to know the small business liaison officer. But when you look at doing business with these organizations, with these municipalities, you need to know the buyers of those particular procurements. And in some organizations, you might have one buyer, in others, you may have 100. So depending on what service or product you provide, you could have one or two buyers that you're talking to, or you could have maybe five. But you need to know who those buyers are because they're the ones that are making the decisions on whether or not to bring you into the fold and to give you an opportunity to do business with them. Additionally, you are included in member directories. That is huge. It's free advertisement basically. And who doesn't love free advertisement? But one thing I can tell you, when I ran the program for Atmos Energy, their small business program, Atmos Energy is in 8 states. If I needed to find someone that was minority certified, I could pick up the phone and contact the Minority Supplier Development Council, and they could give me a list. Now, if you aren't certified, you're not on that list, so I don't know that you exist. But another really great example of that is when we were going through a phase of doing a lot of area replacement in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We had people coming in from all over, from various states to help with kind of shoring up our crews. And you wouldn't think about it, but if you have people coming in from out of state, they're staying in hotels. These people are working 12-hour shifts. They really don't have time to wash their uniforms. I mean, something so easy as washing your uniform. And I needed to find a company that could come out, pick up their clothes, take them, wash them, fold them, and bring them back. And I knew that this was going to be a lucrative opportunity for a business. And I did not want to use a majority owned firm. I wanted to use a minority business. So I found a Black female owned company, and she was able to pivot her entire business. And for 3 months, she had all of our laundry service work. Now, I would not have found her if she was not in one of the databases that I was searching, because she was a certified minority owned business. So that's just some of the opportunity that you get once you go through that certification process. I mean, access to bid on contracts seeking MWBE status. All of these municipalities, corporations, they have annual programs and they assess their goals on an annual basis. It's based off of their past spend, but they're also looking at what they're going to do in the future and then their availability. And by availability, I mean the firms that are out there ready, willing, and able to do business with them. And so when they look at all of that data, they decide, well, you know what, last year we did 25% with minority businesses. This year, we're going to ramp up our goal and we're going to do 30%. And we can support that based on what we did last year, the available firms that are out there, and the work that we have planned for this year. So once they set that goal, all of their RFPs, all of their projects that have some of those goals attached are going to need a certified business on there. And the real key to this is if you look at your company apples to apples, and let's say that you don't have MBE certification and the competitor does. And apples to apples, you guys on paper are even. That organization, that contract owner is going to pick that MBE certified company over you because they can count that spend on their contract, and that goes towards their annual goals. So that is the huge benefit for those municipalities, is by utilizing that MBE, they can check that off for that year and say, we met that goal. Okay. And also B2B opportunities are huge. And you'll have a lot of these in your networkers, and hopefully when we get back to a place of being able to, meet in person at some level. But networkers are great. And I often tell business owners that you have a better opportunity of doing business with someone sitting next to you than you actually do with that city or that large corporation that you're going for. And that's because most of them are looking for businesses to have a certain level of capacity. Now, don't get me wrong, you do have the opportunities that come along where you start up your business, and then all of a sudden, you've been tapped for this opportunity, and it's go time, and your business is just, I mean, it's soaring. That does happen. Not as often as you think, but it does happen. But for the most part, you start off developing your capacity with companies around you. And that's really how you help to build your capacity, but also it now gives you a resume so that when you go after these projects, you can say, well, I've done work with these types of businesses in the past. So your regional certification agencies, as I mentioned, you have the NCTRCA that is located in Arlington, Texas, and they provide minority, woman-owned, disadvantaged, airport concessionaire disadvantaged, and the SBE certification. You also have the DFW Minority Supplier Development Council. They're located in downtown Dallas. They certify minority business enterprises. So you have to be either an ethnic female or male. They do not certify Caucasian females. Then you have your Women's Business Council. They provide the WBE certification. And as I mentioned, the State Comptroller's Office is responsible for the State Hub program. Now, they went into an memorandum of agreement with these organizations and some other organizations within the state of Texas about 12 years ago. And basically they said, hey, if, NCTRCA, you can certify businesses as a DBE, we'll go ahead and just give them the hub certification automatically. And they did the same thing with both of the councils. So in essence, if you go through the certification process with any of these three, you will automatically get a hub certification. And that again speaks to the fact that the level of scrutiny for the three other agencies is just at a higher bar than that of the state hub program. So the cost of doing business, and there's always a cost associated with doing business. For the NCTRCA, you have a $100 new app fee, okay? And that's pretty nominal when you look at the rest of these. The fee is only applied to minority, women, and small business certifications. And that's because the federal government said you cannot charge for the DBE and the ACDBE certifications because this program is really about helping them develop and build capacity, eventually graduating from that program. They do have an annual update or recertification fee, which is $50. And that again is just assessed on the MW and SBEs. And then if you're out of jurisdiction, now out of jurisdiction basically means if you're located in Oklahoma and you decide that you want to do business in Dallas as a minority business, that's an out of jurisdiction certification. So there's an additional fee that's assessed there. Let me grab a sip of water. Then you have your DFW Minority Supplier Development Council. Now, this is where the fees start inching up, and everything is based on the gross sales of that firm. So for the council, you're going to look at about $270 to $800. And again, that $270 is based on the company grossing under $1 million. So for most MBEs that go through this certification, if you're starting up, you're probably going to be at that $270 level. The Women's Business Council also has fees assessed, as you can see there. Those fees are based on the gross sales of the firm. And for both of these councils, the recertification or that annual update cost is the same as the initial application fee. So depending on, again, how big, how large your company is, you really are going to have to start looking at that return on investment, because if you're, putting in $1,250 for a certification every year, that can add up, especially if you're not bringing in the level of work that you anticipated that you would to account for that. And then for your DBE, ACDBE, again, there's no fee assessed there. The SBA certifications are all free as well. And then State Hub, of course, does not have a fee assessed.
All right, so we're going to take another quick break. But when we come back, we're going to discuss positioning your business and how to leverage your certifications. You don't want to miss this. See you in a bit. Have you downloaded the free copy of the Essential Business Plan e-guide? You'll want to, because this is a critical component of establishing and positioning your business. Visit lingofocus.com and use the code FREEBP20 to get your free copy now.
All right, so let's start talking about, you've gone through the certification process and now it's really time to start thinking about positioning your business. Or you have not gone through the process and you're like, Sheen, I want to back it up and make sure that I just have everything in place. So once I start, I'm ready to go after work if it's available. And that's where I would love all businesses to be. That is the right place to be when you're thinking about engaging at this level of work. So these are not in any particular order, but again, just 4 areas that I think are critical for businesses, especially when you're looking at certification. Insurance and bonding is unbelievably required. If you're looking at contracting with any corporation, with any municipality, you will have to have insurance. That is an outright requirement, general liability at the minimum. So if you don't have insurance already, and this is something that you're looking to do, I would strongly suggest that you start searching for an insurance agent and you talk about what type of levels of insurance would be required based on the size of your company, the services that you're providing, and also start looking at the type of customer or client that you're going after. Most of these corporations, if they're really business friendly, this information is available online under their Doing Business with Us sections, and they will outline their insurance requirements. Bonding is more specific to your construction businesses. So if you're in any type of construction trade, bonding is going to be something that they're going to be looking at. And bonding really is a safeguard for the owner of that contract. So in the event that you can't finish the job, they can go out and find somebody that can. Bonding is difficult for small businesses to get because it really is going to be based on your capacity. So when you talk about capacity, you're talking about subcontracting opportunities and really building up that portfolio of work to show where you are able to scale your business and work on various size projects. Business presence. This is so important, and you would think that it's something that's just commonplace, but I hear it all the time. You need to have a website and you need to have a dedicated email address. And you might find that funny. You may find that quite interesting because, most folks are like, hey, I've got a Gmail and it's, my company name at gmail.com, and it works for you. And that's great if it's working in this space now. But I can tell you that from the standpoint of doing business with a municipality, with a corporation, they are going to want to see that you have some type of buy-in, and that's what they consider your business presence, is your buy-in. You've basically gone out and spent money in order to show that you're serious about your business. And while you might think that it's expensive to have a domain, to have a website, there are some really inexpensive providers out there that can get you a landing page and a dedicated email address. But I can guarantee you, if you're doing work with the city of Dallas, you are going to hear this. The city of Fort Worth is going to say the same thing. DART is going to say the same thing. They want to know that you have established some business presence. Having a business banking account is critical. If you don't have that in place, they're not going to do business with you. From an auditing standpoint for them, it just does not make sense. For you, it's something that you need. You have to have a business account in place. That's just very good bookkeeping. And then also, finance and accounting is key. Make sure that you're establishing an accounting system. Some of them can be a little pricey, others are not. There are some very small business friendly accounting systems out there. but you need to make sure that you have one in place. One is that it keeps your books and all of your finances accounted for. It makes it easy for you when you get ready to file your tax returns. But when you're applying for certification, they're going to ask you for your financials. Now, a lot of them will ask for audited financials, and that is quite a heavy lift for small businesses because audited financials do cost quite a bit. So, whereas you can possibly get away with not providing audited financials, you might have to provide more financial proof. You need to have a system that has that information in it so you can print those reports out and get them over to that contract owner pretty fast. But you also want to start developing a financial strategy. And this is key. This is kind of wraps into, your business model, making sure that you have a financial strategy for growth. And this is something that in some cases, contract owners may ask for. They may want to see your business plan, and within that business plan, you should have a financial strategy. Now, when you look at building capacity can be done several ways. I mentioned your B2B opportunities, but also if you're able to subcontract with large primes on contracts. For instance, if we think about the Parkland Hospital project that was done here in Dallas, you may not be performing construction services. You could have been performing some business admin services. You could have been the caterer. You could have been, maybe you were providing the workers' comp services for that contract. Whatever it is, showing your ability to work on contracts of larger contracting amounts builds your capacity. It also shows that you have capacity of working on different types of projects. So being a subcontractor is not a bad thing. It's a really good way for small businesses to build. And then you also want to hire a financial strategist. This is key in developing your financial strategy. If numbers is not your thing, you need to have someone in place that can help you develop those strategies, so that you, again, are building just a holistically solvent business. So how do you leverage this certification? So once you've gone through the process, how do you leverage it? You do this by using it as a supplement to your marketing and advertising collateral. This is nothing that you want to lead with in your marketing collateral. Being MBE certified means a lot to very few. If they are aware of those programs, they will be able to identify that you're MBE, WBE certified, but that's not going to sell them on doing business with you. What they really want to know is, what is your value add? What's your competitive advantage? And how do you basically fit within the context or the culture of their organization? Because they're looking to develop a long-term partnership with you. So those are some of the things that you need to think about as you're marketing your business, is not leading with being certified, but making it a part of that tool. If you know that that client might look at that certification and say, oh, that's interesting. I do have a supplier diversity program and I could use you on a few projects and this would count towards my spend. That's great. That's a cherry on top, but it's not the lead. You want to include your certification designations on your website, marketing collateral, and business cards if possible. And by designations, I mean your MBE, WBE, DBE, or you could include the fact that you are NCTRCA certified, but you never want to include your certification number. That is like your social security number. For instance, with the city of Dallas, I keep using them as an example. I'm just familiar with their program, but they have, like many, good faith efforts that are attached to their contracts. And if I win that contract as a prime contractor, I have to perform a good faith effort, basically saying, I am going to now carve out a percentage of this contract, or a percentage of the contract that they tell me I have to carve out, for other subcontracting opportunities with minority women-owned businesses. But I then have to actively seek out those businesses. So I have to pick up the phone and call you. I have to do some research. I have to let you know that there's an opportunity. I have to let you bid on that subcontracting opportunity. And then based on all of that, I provide them with a report. Part of that report is having your certification number. So if I can pull that off of your website and I know what services you provide, I've got your phone number. I can basically say I tried to email it to you, or I tried to mail you the solicitation and I didn't receive a response. When that compliance officer receives it, they're basically going to say, oh, well, she did. She looked at 3 companies and none of them could do work. And she has all the data to prove that she did that. And you are none the wiser. You don't even know that I pulled that information from you. That's why it's critical to keep that certification number under lock and key. If anyone should ever ask you for it, you give them a copy of your certificate. And I even tell businesses to take it a step further and ask them for the contract details, the name of the contract number, who the contract administrator is, and you make a phone call and make sure that this is a verified opportunity. Because what you don't want to happen is they use you to say, we can't find anybody. They basically get to perform that work and you were never given the opportunity to bid. So your certification number is very important. You also want to attend the networkers. Networkers are really important for you because it allows you to not only meet the client, but you also meet other MBE, WBE firms. Contact the client and find out what type of needs they might have. This is very important, and it kind of folds into this 5th bullet about meeting the buyers. You will be amazed at how open these corporations are about not being able to meet a particular procurement. The city of Dallas for a very long time could not find a local business that could provide them with the chemicals for all of their pools. So they had to buy these chemicals from a company in Oklahoma. And it was killing them because they were like, if we could just find one company in Dallas that provides the chemicals, we could give this contract to them, because they hadn't been able to find anyone. And I thought at the time, had I not been where I was, I would have tried my best to start up that company, because that contract was basically guaranteed to you because they were looking for someone that was local. So by not calling the city of Dallas and finding that out, asking them, well, what needs do you really have? What areas have you not been able to meet spend in? You really don't know what other opportunities are out there. And in 2020, the word of the year has been pivot. Everybody has had to pivot the way that they did business. You've had clothes manufacturers that were no longer making clothes and they started making masks. So everybody has had to pivot and do something different in order to just stay in business. But outside of that, look at opportunities for you to either branch off and do something different, or it may be that you're already providing some related service or product, and this is something that you can also bring into your portfolio. And then completing the vendor profiles. This is key. Unless you complete their profiles, they don't know that you exist. Every single municipality, corporation, if they have a minority program, a supplier diversity program, they have their own database. And they will require for you to fill out a profile so that they know that you're ready, willing, and able to do business with them. And so it's very key that you do this. And you can fill it out now before you're certified, or you can wait and fill it out after you're certified. Most of them allow you to go in and update the information. Just be clear on that before you fill it out, because if they do say, well, you can't make any changes for another year, then you might want to wait if you are going through that certification process until you get it to fill out that vendor profile.
Ooh, you made it. We ran through so much content, but it was just what you needed in order to make the next decision in your business. You now know what certification is, the different types of certifications. You know where you can go obtain those certifications, and most importantly, you know how to position your business and leverage that certification so that you can optimize your business growth opportunity. If you still have questions, I've got something just for you. So, are you ready to start your certification journey? Well, here at Lingo, we provide you with a full suite of certification services. From application preparation to submission, we are with you every step of the way. Visit lingofocus.com/services to schedule your certification consult now.
Hey, it's time to level up. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Lingo Focus. Gain access to business techniques and tips, resources, and all the things that you need to build your business.